The best way to get better at programming is to practice. And in this example, we're looking at how do we write data to a file using Java. As always, these files are available using a link provided below in the description. We'll pause for a couple seconds so you can download it and get ready, and then follow along with us. All right, so let's get started. Now, we have here some basic setup that looks a little bit familiar, but there's also a lot of differences. For example, we don't have our buffered reader anymore. We have our IO exception. We know we're going to have to use this because we're going to write to a file, and IO stands for input output. So we know what's coming, so we left that. And I'm just going to maybe change that error message down there, but that's okay. But how are we going to set up the write? Well, we're going to come in here and we're going to create a BufferedWriter. And I'm going to call this BW for short, equals null. We know that we have to have that dot null so we can close it later on without an error. Inside of our try, this is where we're going to create our BufferedWriter. So we're going to say BW equals new BufferedWriter. And you're going to see that with our BufferedWriter, we're going to need a couple of properties. There's a couple different ways we can create this constructor. One is we're going to need a file writer. So we're going to say new file writer, and the file writer is going to say, okay, what type of file are we going to have? So this is our file name, and I'm going to just call this output.txt. Notice that there's a comma and there's an append, and that is, do we want to append this to an existing file, or do we just want to create a new file? Now, right now with it false, that means we're not going to append it. We are just going to create that file and overwrite any data that's there. If we set that append to equal true, then we're going to add that data on. Now, we could go in and set up to get data from the console and put it in. We're just going to write some hard-coded data just so we can see what it looks like. So I'm going to say bw.write, and notice that it is a write, not a write string. I have a lot of different types of writes. I can write an integer that says a single character. I can write a string and write it's actually just a portion of the string, an offset, and a length. I can write an array of characters, a string. All of it is basically string data with the exception of the character, okay? So I'm going to choose to write the string. What string is it going to be? Well, I'm going to write hello world. Seems kind of fitting. Now remember, this is a write, not a write line. We don't have a write line. So how do we handle that? We're going to say bw.newLine. And newLine is going to put the newLine character in there for me. Now, I could write a newLine character, which is a /n, if I want to do that, but I can just use this method as well. Now, if I want to write a number like a double or something like that, I have to convert that into a string. So I'm going to say bw.write. Ignore the offset and length. We're going to just use regular write. And I'm going to say double.toString. This allows me to write a double here, and then it's going to convert it into a string so that the write method can accept it. So I'm going to say 2.17 just as an example, and then I'm going to have my new line. Don't need my system.out.println, so I'm going to remove that. And then I'm going to come down and I want to close this file. Now, I don't want to close inside my try because what happens if I have a problem opening this file? And opening a file can be a challenge because what happens if I don't have space on my storage device? What happens if the file's already open for reading or writing? It may not allow it. What happens if I can't access the network drive? So there's a lot of different potential issues. So anytime I'm going to close a file, whether it's for reading or writing, you know that we go down to our findings. That's where we're going to come real quick. And I'm going to say BW, my BufferedWriter dot close. I always want to close my writer because this is going to go through. It's going to close the file writer. It's going to close the file. It does all that work for me and it closes it there. In closing it, it now is available to be opened by someone else. All right, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to run this. And when I run it, you're going to say, oh, what? Nothing happened? Well, no, something happened because now I have an output.txt here. And I can see hello world and then my double number 2.17. That is what I put in there. Okay, so while nothing appeared on the screen in my console window, it definitely appeared in my output file, which is exactly what we're looking for. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If so, please consider giving a like and subscribing to the channel so you can see more videos on how to get better at programming.